Hi, this is Sandy McDaniel. In the lesson that was prior to this one, we talked about let children be children and never take your love away. And I asked you at the end of the lesson as your homework to pay attention to how many times you infringed on these two ideas, never take your love away from children, and to just let children be children. Don't rush them. Was it scary? Sometimes it's really scary when we start to notice, and I think that's the hardest part of change. And what I want to say to you is this: don't judge yourself. Do the best you can do every day. That's all anybody can ask of themselves. You're going to learn by watching these lessons to rethink, to resculpture, to redo how you work with your children. It's going to be a process, and you're going to make some mistakes on the way. And so as I begin this morning, I just want to be very sure that you're gentle with yourself. If you make a mistake, if you break a rule, if you catch yourself doing something that you don't want to do it that way, start over. Start right from there and start anew. But don't get all frazzed out and get hard on yourself. You can't do better than your best, and your best is good enough. You know, I asked my son Scott not too long ago, he's in his 30s, I said, Scott, I made so many mistakes, particularly in my early years of parenting. I made so many mistakes. How is it that you don't resent those mistakes? And he looked at me and he looked away and he looked back at me and he said, you were trying so hard, Mom. They know. They know if you're working on your parenting and trying to make it better. Now, today's lesson is an important one. When you scream and yell at children, they cannot hear you. Oops. Because usually what happens is when you have less power than your little child who's shorter than you, it's very frustrating. And so what you do is the volume goes up and up and up, and when you get angry, you scream. Starting today, you're going to rethink that. Because when you scream and yell at children, they cannot hear you. Why? Fear cuts off your ability to think and reason, right? Let me tell you a story. We have a family home over in Catalina Island in Avalon. And I was coming home one day, so I was waiting in line for the boat to return us to the mainland. And I was standing there watching the crowd, as I do. And there were two elderly dogs and the couple who owned them. And everybody was petting the dogs because they were wagging their tails and they were such sweet animals. And the 7-year-old boy walked over and started petting the dogs. His mom turned, saw him petting the dogs. And just like an attack dog, one of those movies where this dragon comes out of nowhere, like this, she went over and said, "What are you doing? Are you so stupid? I've told you 1,000 times, don't pet an animal you don't know." He totally screamed and yelled at the child. Now, all these people who had nothing else to do because they're standing in line were watching this. All the blood went out of the boy's face. He was totally mortified. As the mother turned around and got distracted by something, he stood there sulking, and then he turned when she wasn't looking and kicked her suitcase. When you scream and yell at children, they cannot hear you. We have a fear, and it's a primal fear. Primal means you don't have to learn it. A primal fear is sudden, loud noises. Never mind, angry mom is behind it. So in the case of the mother could have sat down with the boy, pulled him aside, and said, you know what? I'm so glad you like animals. You love animals. You care about animals. And it's a really good policy to ask the owner if you can pet an animal before you just do it. But through kindness, you teach the lesson. When the woman was screaming and yelling at her son, he totally vapor locked. This is my word. It's a word that I learned when I was teaching elementary school. I taught 4th grade and I was back in my 20s. I didn't know what I know now, okay? 38 kids. Every once in a while, you totally lose it. And you go, okay, you guys, I've had enough. The whole class, all 38 kids, vapor locked. Watch my face. This is what vapor locked is. Glassy eyes, funny little grin. I don't know where they go. I'm too old. I've totally forgotten. But the minute a loud noise, angry mom comes in the room, the kids vapor lock. They do not hear one word that you have said prior to that. Fear cuts off your ability to think and reason. So if you run in the room and you say to two kids who were fighting or knocked something over, you heard the crash from downstairs, and you go, "What are you two doing?" And then you go on your laundry list. "Ever since you got up this morning, you've been fighting, you've been arguing, you've been this. What's the deal with you about the cereal? Every single morning, I don't like the cereal." We go and buy a new cereal. "I don't like the cereal." You go after the other child. "What's the deal with you? Pick out the outfit the night before." "I'm not wearing that." The whole thing. Everything you've been mad at the kids for a week, a month, whenever, however long your laundry list is. You're just going to go blah, 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 blah. Then, because there was a problem which brought you to the room in the first place, you go back to square one. Watch my arms, bulldozer. I asked you what you were doing. Now, if the children knew, they would say, "Wait just 1 minute. You came in here, you screamed and yelled, you scared us to death, we vapor locked, we can't find that answer." But they don't know that. So what are they going to do? "I asked you what you were doing." They're going to do one of two things. Tell a big fat whopper lie. "Oh yeah, I'd coach a kid to do that. Go tell Darth Vaderus a whopper lie right now." That'd be a good strategy. Or they're going to do something else right in front of you. Knock over the goldfish bowl. Start hitting each other. Something to get it off of the fact that neither kid can remember what happened before because they were frightened into vapor locking. When you scream and yell at children, they cannot hear you. Do you do homework with your children? Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it? They're giving too much homework in the schools, and it needs to stop, and the parents need to stop it. That's a whole nother topic. Your job tonight is to help your child with your homework. Let's say, just for a thought, your brain works differently than the child you're helping. You didn't even know that was possible, did you? I don't do well in school. I got a college graduated from college, got a college degree. After that, I didn't go back to school. I could have gotten 2 PhDs for all the work I've done. But my brain and the way the people who wrote the textbooks and teach school are not compatible. So it's just painful for me. So if you sit down and your brain doesn't work the same way as a child, and you explain something and the child doesn't get it, and you explain it again and the child doesn't get it, and you explain it again, now you're starting to get frustrated, right? So you start getting that little in your voice, and it's like this, and then you do something like this. What you just said to your child was, "You're not good enough." You didn't say, "We have a problem here because our brains work differently." You blamed it on the child with your body language. Some children do well in school, some do not. If you're helping with homework and you're constantly bumping off your child, get somebody else to do it. It's just that simple. Fear cuts off your ability to think and reason. Haven't you ever been standing at a party and you're standing with a friend and you're talking, and across the room is somebody you know, and you go, "Oh, hi!" and they wave back and they're coming towards you, and you can't think of their name. The closer that person gets to you, the farther away that name is going to be, right? So you're going, name, 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 and you panic inside. Fear cuts off your ability to think and reason. There's no way you're going to think of that name. So what do? You have to get away from the person you're standing next to, right? Got to go to the bathroom. And so you split so that you don't show that person you don't know their name. Fear cuts off your ability to think and reason. I think that getting back to schools, that having schools, teachers, and students measured by testing is absurd for this one reason. There's a lot of pressure on children to do well in testing. The schools are very uptight about testing. The teachers are uptight about testing because they're going to be measured by what you do on that test. If you get afraid, you can't find the answers. Some children take tests well. I said that a minute ago. I'll say it again. Some do not. It's really important that we put pressure on our schools to do something other than pressuring the children into doing testing well. Because you're not measuring whether children know or learning in school, know the answers or learning in school. What you're measuring is which children can take a test on that day. And we've done studies. We've given the same class, the same test 2 weeks later. All the test scores are everywhere. They're different. So what are we really measuring? We're not measuring intelligence. We're not measuring whether the job's getting done, and it needs to stop. Fear cuts off your ability to think and reason. One of my favorite topics, and one I'll probably do a whole section on, is winning in sports. When you scream at a child who didn't make a goal, who didn't catch the ball, who didn't hit the ball, who didn't whatever, who didn't excel in sports, the message to the child is you are not good enough. Not you didn't do it well enough. You are not good enough. I think we're starting children too early in sports. I think we're asking children to excel in sports. I think we're teaching children to burn out in sports. I think we're putting stress of regular life, school, and every place else into sports, and I think it needs to stop. When a child is afraid that he or she will make a mistake, they can't do the sport well. Get off their backs. Let children be children. Back to square one. One more thing about the brain and fear cutting off the ability to think and reason. The brain needs downtime. Every educator is taught this, so I'm sure the people who are running the school system know it. Every brain needs downtime to take the data that is collected, to sort it and file it. If it doesn't have downtime, then it just takes so much and then it gets clogged up. We have taken the arts and the music out of schools. That is such a mistake for the brain's reason alone. Because in art and music, the brain had time then to take the data from the academics in the morning, presumably, and to sort and file them. And that's when learning happens. My issue, of course, has to do with the self-esteem of kids. When I taught school back in my 20s, it was easier to take a child who wasn't doing well with the academics and have a success over here. Wow, you can sing. Wow. You can draw a picture. You drew that picture? No kidding. Now this child is struggling in math, but can draw a picture. So they keep balanced in their idea that they are lovable and capable, that they are good enough. And now we've taken that away. It's really silly. We need to bring all those things back. Slow down. Don't rush our children. And we need to understand that the more we pressure children, the less likely they are to do well, because fear cuts off your ability to think and reason. Stop screaming at your children. Use my discipline system and you will never scream at them again. No, I'm not nuts. No, I'm not smoking my own dope. No, I'm not wrong. If you use my discipline system, you will never need to yell at your children again. Now, your homework for next week is to pay attention to, first of all, how much screaming you do. Just notice. Go, oh no, I'm doing it again. And then to have a period, a cutoff period in the day, a certain day. I will not scream at my children that whole day. It would be wise if you use my discipline system in the middle, because, or prior to that, along with that, because then you won't need to scream and it'll be easy. But your job is to notice how much power over children you do by screaming and yelling. It's a hard job, isn't it? Remember, there are no reruns. You only get to do it once, and you are sculpturing a human being every day. Do your best. And remember this,